Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic? Let's do it. What is your, oh crap, that kid is twisted moment? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. When I was in 8th grade, we would walk home from junior high on the days it was nice. Being 13 years old, we would take the long way and stop at our friend's house along the way to see what was going on. Way before cell phones were a normal thing, so stopping by was our preferred method. Anyway, we saw a friend of ours had dropped his bike in front of another kid's house that we all knew. He wasn't anyone's favorite person, but he sort of wormed his way into the fold of friends. We could hear noise in the backyard, so we ran around the corner of his house just in time to see him take his brother's guinea pig out of his cage, soak it in lighter fluid, and set it on fire. The way he laughed and cackled will be with me for the rest of my life. He was rolling on the ground laughing as this poor thing ran around. I'm not a big believer in evil as a blanket statement about somebody, but that dude was evil as hell. Never spoke to him or our other friend who was with him again. I used to teach kids in Japan. One time there was this little shit named Tomoko. Tomoki was 6 years old and was a little terror. Wouldn't listen to people, tried to damage property whenever he could. One day, Tomoki jumped on top of a small table and starts messing with the cords for the window blinds. After telling him to get down, another 6-year-old thinks it's awesome and jumps up on the table to copy Tomoki and be a nuisance. This was the creepy part. Tomoki's eyes get dark, and he stares at the kid while he's playing. He then grabs one of the cords, and in a split second, wraps it around the other kid's neck and pushes him off the table, hoping to hang him. The kid hit the ground before the noose could tighten, but that little gremlin, Tomoki, stood over the table with a face that threatened the kid not to invade his space again. He tried to hang a child for no reason. That kid's gonna have problems. When I taught preschool, there was a child I used to teach who would find it hilarious to jump on sleeping children's heads. He was a very intelligent child, but had horrible behavior problems. He was very violent and did not care what others felt or thought. His mom tried everything to help him. We tried everything. I worry that someday I'll see his name in the news. A friend of mine is a single mother. When the kid was less than 4 years old, she was dating a guy. He was nice with the kid, but sometimes they had some conflicts because the kid was spoiled. Sometimes he wasn't well received because of that. She lived with her family. I was there, and boyfriend came to visit. Her mother made dinner, and the boyfriend went out to buy sodas for everybody. When he came back, the kid asked for soda. Boyfriend told him to wait until dinner was served, which was about to happen. The kid didn't want to wait and hit the boyfriend, or better said, threw something at him. I don't remember exactly what it was and demanded, "Give me soda." Boyfriend was upset and told him because of his behavior, he won't have any soda. The kid threw himself on the floor and began to scream, saying that boyfriend hit him. My friend came running and told boyfriend to leave, not before telling him if he hit the boy, she would crush him. Boyfriend tried to explain the situation, but she didn't allow it. Boyfriend leaves. When boyfriend leaves, the kid smiled in a way I can only describe as diabolical. When my friend got back to check on the kid, he was whinnying again and putting on the act holding her. As I saw everything, I waited for after dinner, when she calmed down and told her what happened. It's easy to guess that the relationship didn't last much more than this, and others to come because of that same reason. I was once at the beach, and there was this boy hell-bent on crushing a crab that was full of eggs with a rock. We were observing the crab, and he came in following. We asked him not to do it, but he still held on to the rock, and his mom showed up ready to throw hands if we dared to stop her little hellspawn. That boy literally had an evil grin on his face. The second we turned, we heard a heavy thud. The boy continued to grin and laugh at what he had done. By the way, the boy was around 8 to 10. He definitely was old enough to know better. When I was 3 or 4, my cousin visited me, who at the time was 8 to 10. She was with us for a weekend. On this weekend, she, after I told her that I named the squirrels in our garden, tried to hit them with stones in an attempt to kill them, while telling me that she wanted to kill them. When I had a tic, I was whining a bit because I was afraid removing it would hurt. She not only told me to shut up and stop being a baby, but she also started slamming doors in our house because my mother gave me more attention while she was removing the tic than her. She refused to eat anything because she only ate a few specific things and would throw the food on the table. While I was making a bracelet with some pearls that I had collected, she was trying to swallow them so that I couldn't use them. She also hit and scratched me on multiple occasions. All of this happened on one weekend. Needless to say, my mother was completely occupied with her. After that weekend, her parents came and basically said, yeah, normally she's only allowed to stay over once. They also told my mother that whenever she threw a fit, they would lock themselves up in their room and just hope that whatever she damaged wasn't expensive to replace. Years later, her parents were pretty much exhausted by the time she was 16. As it turned out, she had some major psychological problems. No guidance or any discipline, and was bullied at school a lot. She developed anorexia and had to stay at a clinic for a few months. I saw her again when she was 19. She was a completely different person and loved to play with us kids. She now trains service dogs for a living. She was the most evil child I ever met, but I'm glad she changed and got the help she needed. With only short snippets of information on all of these people's stories, I wonder sometimes how much of this is environmental and how much of it could be developmental or just born with. And what's the difference? It's nice to see some of the stories have somewhat happier endings or next steps, but I have a feeling some won't. There used to be a kid on my street who thought it was funny to push the kid he was walking with in the street when a car was approaching. My husband got out of the car once to tell him that's dangerous. The kids laughed and seemed unbothered. He would also scream curse words at the top of his lungs. After a few months, I stopped seeing him. Don't know if he moved or what. Hopefully he stopped playing chicken with innocent kids. I was working retail, and this little cherub of a kid was in the store with his grandma. He was nice throughout the store. He was maybe 5 or 6 years old. I was bagging their items. He was watching me very intently yeah, okay, a little weird, but whatever. At this particular store, we had a bag carousel that spins, and he was watching me put the items away. He very suddenly got this evil smirk on his face. I don't know how else to describe it, except it was like a demon had possessed him. He looked so mean. It was creepy enough that my fight or flight kicked in, and I was pretty alarmed. Immediately after this, he grabbed the bag carousel and spun it very quickly while my hands were in way in order to hit me with it, so I'd get hurt. I've never seen a look like that on someone's face since, especially not a child. It was bizarre. My neighbor's brother, around 9 or 10, was tackling her to the point where she couldn't breathe and almost passed out. My mom had to get him off of her. He was so smug. He knew exactly what he was doing, and it was like you could see the devil in his eyes. Then one day, both of their parents were gone. Dad was a firefighter. Mom went on a secret cruise, and she just left them there without telling him. The boy locked all of his sisters out of the house and chased them around the neighborhood with a knife. We had to hide them at our house until their mom came back home days later. No idea what happened to them. We moved not long after that. I've managed a few properties with kids that I am certain will become serial killers. One used to sneak into the retention pond and kill frogs and then drain their dead bodies all over his bike and ride around with them until they decayed too much and fell off. He was 4 or 5 at the time. Found regularly in the pond after midnight during the week. No supervision, no friends whatsoever, and clearly had a number of unaddressed issues that could have benefited from early intervention. Had a friend from early childhood that would get psychotic. His parents were awesome people, but were terrible parents to him. He had a walk-in closet filled with toys. This was when I was poor as F. A lot of kids would hang out there because his parents didn't give a Anyways, there was this cultural shift happening in the early 90s, and once movies like Boys in the Hood and Menace to Society came out, he adopted a gangsta attitude. This was when he was like 12 or something. He'd demand things from his mom, like he'd yell for drinks to be served or food to be made, and she'd do what he asked. He'd explode in a rage over certain things, like he always got so pissed that I was good at Nintendo. There's that part in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the NES where he's supposed to just run over the gap, but he kept trying to jump it. He'd fall down, new enemies would spawn, and he'd try it again. He'd be in such a rage, but if I offered to get him past the hard part, he'd insist he did it himself. After a while, the TMNT gap, him dying, he destroyed a bunch of shit in their home, like furniture, decor, and damaged the TV. Whatever he could destroy, he destroyed. I went to his house like a week after this, and there was all new shit. His mom only said something like, "Don't do that again, please," to him. Then there was the time a black friend of ours was at his house playing basketball. My psychotic friend hurled racist insults at him after he won a game or something, ended up throwing an axe at him, causing the need for several stitches. Even with that, I don't think he was punished at all. It was around this time that he became fixed on violence and weapons. We were in the garage, and he took a swing at me with a knife. I had to quickly lunge back to avoid being cut, and didn't hang out there for a while after that. My friend grew up somehow, though I have no idea how. He's now living as a missionary in India or something. Lived in government housing, also known as the projects, for about 5 years. There was this kid, Kyle. He was maybe 4 or 5. You only saw him in a diaper, no other clothing, no matter the weather. I saw him walk through snow like that. He had a really wide, creepy grin and unblinking stare. All the kids were terrified of him in that instinctual way kids can be when they sense something really bad. Kyle just walked slowly, like he was determined in some random straight path. It's not like he was a predator that stalked you. He just existed in some weird, trance-like state, not blinking, grinning. Sometimes he'd stop, turn his head slowly and look at you, then move on, just effing unnatural and evil looking. If he went to the playground we had next to the complex, all the kids would leave. I never saw it, but other parents said they caught him with dead animals like birds and squirrels. We lived near a large park, smashing them repeatedly against trees and playground equipment. Some knew his parents and said they were drug addicts. No idea if that was at all true. But yeah, you saw that kid, you just want the hell in the other direction. Cousin was 5 when he was found with his pants down with his naked 18-month-old female cousin in a closet. Later stabbed his brother in the head with a pencil. When he was 6 or 7, our great uncle died. I drove my grandmother down to be with her sister, his widow. My older cousin, C, 20 female, arrives at the same time. We walk in and see the brat there. C and I go to the living room to catch up, and Brat follows us. He goes into full monster mode and starts destroying a chair. So we told him to knock it off, and he sneers at us, saying Grandma's moving in with us and can't bring her stuff anyway. C and I got up to stop him, beat his ass. When his mom and dad drove up, Brat ran out the door and flung himself into Mommy's arms, crying, "Mommy, Mommy, I'm so sorry I left you alone last night, but Grandma needed me." Of course, his mother hugged him, and he turned and sneered at C and me. It was scary, the look in that little monster's eyes. I used to teach this student who I would put in his category. He had an expressionless face, and he did awful things. One example that stands out is that he cornered a student during passing in the hallway, tied him to a staircase with his belt, and wrote F on his face with lipstick. He had given him a really painful-looking wedgie. He was busted and suspended and later expelled for all manner of bullying and cruel behaviors. I saw his name in the paper just a few years later for assault. Haven't followed up on him since, but I recall his eyes. He had a dead sort of expression. He was unfathomable to me.